Dr. Isabella Romano stared at the monitor, her coffee growing cold beside her keyboard. The neural activity patterns from the laboratory's resident ravens weren't just unusual, they were impossible. 20 years of studying animal cognition had taught her what normal looked like, and this wasn't it. The wavelengths pulsed with an almost mathematical precision, suggesting not just consciousness, but complex thought. "Nathan, come look at this," she called to her research partner. Dr. Nathan Patel glanced up from his workstation across the pristine laboratory at the Cognitive Biology Institute. He'd been with her since the beginning of this project, his expertise in quantum biology complementing her background in neuroscience. "Another anomaly?" he asked, rolling his chair over. His dark eyes narrowed behind round glasses as he studied the screen. "That's not background interference. I've ruled out everything else," Isabella replied, running her fingers through her graying hair. "These patterns, they're showing up across multiple subjects now, not just the ravens. The wolves in Section C are displaying similar wavelengths, and so are the dolphins at our coastal facility." The implications made her dizzy. For months, they'd been monitoring heightened neural activity in various species, but this was different. The patterns weren't random. They were structured, organized, almost like. "It looks like language," Nathan whispered, voicing her unspoken thought. Isabella nodded slowly. "But not any language we know. It's more like they're all speaking the same tongue. Different species, separated by millions of years of evolution, somehow sharing identical neural patterns." Over the next few weeks, their small lab transformed into a hub of feverish activity. They brought in Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a brilliant quantum physicist who specialized in consciousness studies, and Dr. James Morrison, whose work with artificial intelligence had revolutionized pattern recognition. The team worked around the clock, fueled by coffee and the intoxicating possibility that they stood on the brink of something unprecedented. The breakthrough came on a stormy night in October. Isabella had been running new scenarios through their quantum computer when Yuki burst into the lab, her usually composed demeanor shattered by excitement. "The frequency," she exclaimed, spreading papers across Isabella's desk. "It's not just neural activity. It's quantum entanglement at a biological level. These creatures are communicating through quantum channels we never knew existed." The theory was revolutionary. Animals had evolved a form of communication that transcended conventional physical limitations. It explained why dolphins could share patterns with ravens, why wolves seemed to respond to signals from thousands of miles away. They weren't using sound or sight or smell. They were using nature's own quantum network. The next challenge was finding a way to tap into this network. James suggested adapting their quantum computing technology to create an interface, a bridge between human consciousness and the animal quantum web. The project, dubbed Babel, consumed their lives for the next 6 months. The first prototype was crude, a helmet-like device bristling with quantum sensors and neural interfaces. Isabella volunteered to be the first test subject, despite Nathan's protests about safety protocols. "We don't know what this level of quantum exposure could do to human consciousness," he argued. "We don't have time for more simulations," Isabella countered. "Something's coming. These patterns, they're getting stronger, more urgent. The animals are trying to tell us something, and we need to know what it is." On a clear spring morning, surrounded by emergency medical equipment and her nervous colleagues, Isabella donned the prototype. The ravens watched from their enclosure, unnaturally still and focused. As James initiated the quantum field, Isabella felt a strange sensation, like standing in the ocean as waves passed through her body. Then it hit her, a tsunami of consciousness, thoughts, and emotions not her own flooding her mind. She gasped, gripping the arms of her chair as images and sensations overwhelmed her. Through the chaos, a single message emerged, crystal clear and terrifying in its implications. The fields are failing. The shield weakens. Change comes. When they finally removed the helmet, Isabella was shaking, tears streaming down her face. The ravens had crowded against the glass of their enclosure, their eyes fixed on her with an intelligence that now seemed obvious. "What did you see?" Nathan asked softly, helping her stand. Isabella looked at her teammates, then at the ravens. "Everything," she whispered. "And we're running out of time." That night, as news of their breakthrough spread through secured channels to select scientific committees and government agencies, strange auroras lit up the skies worldwide. Animals in zoos and wildlife preserves began exhibiting unprecedented behaviors. And in the depths of the oceans, vast migrations began, as if all of Earth's creatures were responding to some silent alarm that humanity was only now learning to hear. The question wasn't just whether humans were ready to hear what animals had to say. The question was whether we had started listening too late. The world wasn't ready for talking animals. But then again, as Isabella quickly learned, that wasn't quite what they'd discovered. 6 weeks after the initial breakthrough, the Cognitive Biology Institute had transformed into a fortress of secrecy, crawling with government officials and military personnel. "They're not exactly talking," Isabella explained to Admiral Rachel Hayes, the latest high-ranking official to demand answers. "It's more like accessing a living internet. Every species contributes to and draws from this quantum network of consciousness." The Admiral frowned at the ravens, which had taken to arranging themselves in precise geometric patterns whenever humans entered the lab. "And they're warning us about something." "Multiple things," Nathan interjected, pulling up their latest data. "The messages are becoming clearer as we refine the interface. The animals are detecting changes in Earth's magnetic field, alterations in ocean chemistry, and something they keep referring to as the Great Unweaving." Dr. Yuki Tanaka's modified interface, now sleeker and more stable than the prototype, had revealed a world of animal consciousness far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. Each species possessed its own unique perspective of Earth's systems, contributing to a vast ecological awareness that spanned the globe. Whales sang of deep ocean currents growing erratic, their ancient migration routes becoming unreliable. Birds reported magnetic anomalies disrupting their navigation abilities. Even insects, with their brief lives and tiny brains, contributed to the network, their collective consciousness tracking subtle changes in Earth's electromagnetic field. The first public test of the interface occurred under heavy security. They chose Linda Martinez, a renowned wildlife photographer with decades of field experience, as the civilian subject. The media presence was minimal, just enough to document without turning it into a circus. Linda's eyes went wide as the interface activated. "Oh my God," she whispered. "They're all connected. All of them. It's beautiful." But beauty quickly gave way to concern. Through Linda's documented experience, they learned that the animal network was in a state of unprecedented agitation. Species that had never interacted were sharing information, coordinating responses to changes that humans couldn't yet detect. "It's like they're preparing for something," Linda reported, her voice trembling. "Something big." The breakthrough in public communication came from an unexpected source. A pod of dolphins near the Institute's coastal facility began transmitting complex mathematical equations through the network. Dr. James Morrison recognized them as calculations describing perturbations in Earth's magnetic field. "They're not just warning us," he announced during an emergency team meeting. "They're trying to help us understand the science behind what's happening." Isabella spent countless hours in the interface, learning to navigate the vast web of animal consciousness. Each species added its own flavor to the network. Ravens brought pattern recognition and problem-solving. Wolves contributed social dynamics and territorial awareness. Whales added their songs of deep ocean changes. And countless smaller creatures filled in the gaps with their collective observations. But it was the insects that provided the most disturbing insights. Their short generations and vast numbers made them evolutionary sensors, detecting and adapting to changes faster than larger species. Through their collective consciousness, they reported increasing instances of genetic mutations, as if Earth's shifting magnetic field was affecting DNA itself. "The changes are accelerating," Isabella reported to the newly formed International Animal Communication Task Force. The network is humming with activity. Every species is reporting unprecedented alterations in their environment. The military wanted to weaponize the discovery. Intelligence agencies saw it as the ultimate surveillance tool. But Isabella and her team fought to maintain control of their research, arguing that humanity's survival might depend on maintaining trust with the animal network. Then came the night everything changed. Isabella was working late, monitoring network activity, when every connected animal in the facility suddenly fell silent. The quantum readings flatlined for exactly 3 minutes. When they resumed, the message that poured through was no longer just a warning. It was an invitation. The time of separation ends, came the collective voice of Earth's creatures. Join or perish in the coming storm. Nathan found Isabella at her desk the next morning, her eyes red from lack of sleep, surrounded by pages of notes and calculations. "They're not just communicating," she said without looking up. "They're evolving. All of them, simultaneously, in response to whatever's coming. And they want to help us evolve too." As dawn broke over the Institute, more reports flooded in from around the world. Animals were exhibiting new behaviors, unprecedented adaptations appearing in multiple species simultaneously. The quantum network was becoming stronger, more coherent, as if Earth's creatures were unifying in preparation for an imminent change. In the raven's enclosure, the birds had arranged themselves in a perfect spiral, their eyes glowing with an inner light that hadn't been there before. Through the interface, their message was clear. Evolution wasn't just a slow march through time anymore. It had become a conscious choice, and humanity needed to decide quickly which path it would take. The first signs of physical transformation appeared among the birds. Isabella watched through reinforced glass as the ravens demonstrated abilities that defied conventional biology. Their feathers had developed an iridescent sheen that seemed to shift with Earth's magnetic pulses, and their eyes now possessed a crystalline quality that allowed them to perceive quantum fluctuations directly. "The network is changing them at a genetic level," Dr. Yuki Tanaka explained, reviewing the latest molecular scans. "But it's not random mutation. It's directed evolution, using quantum entanglement to coordinate changes across entire species." The Institute had become the epicenter of a global phenomenon. Scientists from every continent were reporting similar transformations in local wildlife. Marine biologists in Australia documented dolphins developing specialized organs that could generate and manipulate electromagnetic fields. In the Amazon, insects were evolving crystalline structures in their bodies that acted as natural quantum processors. Professor Raj Kapoor, a leading geneticist from Mumbai, joined their team to study the unprecedented rate of mutation. "This shouldn't be possible," he muttered, examining tissue samples from the transformed ravens. "Evolution doesn't work this fast. Unless it's been waiting to happen," Isabella finished his thought. "Like a biological software update that just needed the right trigger." The military presence at the Institute had doubled, but even they couldn't ignore the changes happening in their own bodies. Personnel who spent time near the transformed animals reported strange sensations, heightened awareness, unexplainable intuitions, and occasional glimpses of the quantum network itself. Admiral Hayes returned, this time with haunted eyes. "It's not just happening here," she reported. "Every major military installation near significant wildlife populations is reporting similar phenomena. The Chinese, Russians, everyone. We're all experiencing the same thing. The animals are changing us." The public couldn't be kept in the dark any longer. When the first videos of transformed wildlife leaked online, the world erupted in a mixture of fear, wonder, and religious fervor. Streets filled with protesters and pilgrims alike. Some demanded the elimination of the mutant creatures, while others claimed this was the next step in Earth's spiritual evolution. Through it all, Isabella and her team worked tirelessly to understand the true nature of the transformation. Nathan had developed a theory that the animals weren't just evolving. They were recovering abilities that had been dormant in Earth's creatures since the planet's early history. The quantum network has always been there. He explained during a global scientific conference. It's how life on Earth coordinated its development in the first place. We just lost the ability to access it somewhere along the way. Now something is forcing us to reconnect. The breakthrough in understanding came from an unexpected source. A group of children visiting the Institute's Public Education Center demonstrated an unprecedented ability to connect with the quantum network naturally, without technological assistance. Their young minds, still plastic and adaptable, were spontaneously developing the same capabilities as the transformed animals. "They're showing us the way," Linda Martinez observed, having become a permanent member of the research team. "Children don't have the mental barriers we've built up. They can still see the connections we forgot existed." But not everyone welcomed these changes. Reports surfaced of transformed animals being hunted and killed by frightened locals. Military contractors worked to develop weapons that could disrupt the quantum network, seeing it as a potential threat to national security. The divide between those who embraced the transformation and those who feared it grew deeper each day. Isabella spent countless hours in the interface, trying to understand the urgency driving these changes. The animal network pulsed with increasing intensity, its messages becoming more complex and dire. Through the combined consciousness of Earth's creatures, a pattern emerged, one that pointed to a fundamental shift in the planet's magnetic field, one that could alter the very nature of life on Earth. "It's not just about survival," she explained to her team during a late-night session. "The animals aren't just adapting to change, they're preparing to help guide it. They're trying to ensure that as many species as possible, including humans, survive what's coming." The revelation came during a massive solar storm that lit up skies worldwide with unprecedented auroras. As electromagnetic disturbances disrupted global communications, the quantum network grew stronger. Through it, Earth's transformed creatures shared a vision of the future, one where the boundary between different forms of life began to blur, where consciousness itself became the key to survival. In the Institute's main laboratory, the ravens arranged themselves in a new pattern, their crystalline eyes focused on the assembled humans. Through the interface, their message resonated with crystal clarity. "The Great Barrier falls. The separation ends. We must all become one, or none will survive." As Isabella looked around at her transformed research subjects, the ravens with their quantum-sensing eyes, the wolves with their electromagnetically charged fur, the insects with their crystalline neural networks, she realized they weren't just studying evolution anymore. They were participating in it. The question wasn't whether humanity would join this transformation, but how many would be willing to take the leap into an uncertain but unified future. The coming storm wasn't just a threat. It was an opportunity for Earth's life to transcend its limitations and become something entirely new. But first, they had to convince a frightened world that the only way forward was together. Earth's magnetic field was failing faster than anyone had predicted. Across the globe, compasses spun wildly. Migrating birds flew in chaotic patterns, and electromagnetic disturbances disrupted power grids with increasing frequency. But while human technology faltered, the transformed animals seemed to grow stronger, their new abilities flourishing in the changing environment. Isabella hadn't slept in days. The quantum network hummed with constant activity now, a chorus of Earth's creatures sharing information and adapting in real time. Through the refined interface, she watched in amazement as species after species underwent rapid transformations. "The dolphins have developed something extraordinary," Dr. Tanaka announced one morning, her hands trembling as she displayed the latest scans. "Their new organs aren't just sensing electromagnetic fields, they're generating quantum fields that stabilize the space around them. They're creating localized areas of magnetic stability." The implications were staggering. While human scientists struggled to understand the collapse of Earth's magnetic field, the transformed animals were already developing solutions, but their protection could only extend so far. Professor Kapoor's genetic studies revealed something even more remarkable. The transformations we're seeing, they're not random mutations. The quantum network is activating dormant genetic sequences that exist in every living thing on Earth. These capabilities have been buried in our DNA all along, waiting for this moment. The first human transformations began spontaneously. Like the children who had shown natural abilities to access the network, adults who spent significant time around transformed animals started exhibiting changes. Their eyes developed the same crystalline quality, their nervous systems began generating quantum fields, and their consciousness expanded to touch the edges of the network. Admiral Hayes, who had become an unexpected ally, brought news from government sources. It's happening everywhere. Military personnel, researchers, even civilians living near wildlife populations, they're all changing. Some governments want to quarantine the affected individuals, but it's spreading too fast. The public reaction was chaos. Religious leaders declared it either divine intervention or demonic possession. Scientists argued over whether to classify it as evolution or invasion. Governments worldwide struggled to maintain order as society split between those embracing the transformation and those fighting to remain purely human. Inside the Institute, Isabella and her team worked to understand the true purpose behind these changes. Through the quantum network, they pieced together a devastating truth. Earth's magnetic field wasn't just failing, it was reorganizing itself. The planet was entering a period of magnetic reversal, one that would expose all life to levels of cosmic radiation and electromagnetic chaos not seen for millions of years. The animals knew, Nathan realized, studying data from their earliest communications. They've been preparing for this since before we made contact. The quantum network isn't just for communication, it's a survival mechanism. The transformed ravens brought the final piece of the puzzle. Through their enhanced consciousness, they shared visions of Earth's deep past, previous magnetic reversals where life survived by accessing the quantum realm, using collective consciousness to generate protective fields that shielded against the worst effects of the chaos. We're not just witnessing evolution, Isabella explained to an emergency session of the United Nations, broadcast globally. We're seeing life on Earth return to its original state, before the strong magnetic field made us complacent, before we forgot our connection to the quantum realm. All living things were linked. We weren't just connected, we were one. But time was running out. Magnetic anomalies were intensifying, causing widespread disruption to human civilization. Power grids failed, satellites malfunctioned, and the very fabric of modern society began to unravel. In coastal areas, transformed marine life created safe zones where human refugees gathered, protected by the quantum fields generated by dolphins and whales. The children led the way. Worldwide, young people showed an instinctive understanding of the transformation, their minds easily slipping into the quantum network. They became bridges between the old world and the new, helping adults overcome their fears and embrace the change. Professor Kapoor made the breakthrough that would decide humanity's fate. The transformation isn't just physical, it's a quantum entanglement at the cellular level. Once enough individuals change, they can create a field effect that helps others transform more safely. The animals aren't just showing us the way, they're offering to guide us through. In the Institute's main chamber, now transformed into a global coordination center, Isabella stood before representatives from every major nation. The ravens perched in their new crystalline enclosure, their quantum-enhanced consciousness reaching out to touch the minds of all present. Through the network, Earth's creatures shared their ultimate message. The time of division ends. The barrier between flesh and field, between mind and matter, is dissolving. Together, we become the shield. Apart, none survive. As if to emphasize their warning, the sky outside blazed with unprecedented auroras, the weakening magnetic field allowing solar radiation to paint the heavens in terrifying beauty. Humanity stood at a crossroads. Cling to their isolated existence and face extinction, or embrace a transformation that would redefine what it meant to be alive on Earth. The choice would have to be made soon. Very soon. The day Earth's magnetic field began its final collapse, the sky burned with colors never before seen by human eyes. Auroras danced from pole to equator, and in that ethereal light, The transformed animals glowed with their own inner radiance, their quantum-enhanced bodies resonating with the planet's shifting energy. Isabella stood on the Institute's roof, her transformed eyes perceiving layers of reality that her old self could never have imagined. The quantum network had become a visible thing to her now, a shimmering web of consciousness that connected every living thing. Beside her, Nathan's transformed form pulsed with the same crystalline energy that now flowed through all those who had chosen to change. "The final phase has begun," he said, his voice carrying harmonics that rippled through the quantum field. "We're receiving reports from every continent. The magnetic poles are shifting faster than any models predicted." Below them, the Institute had become the sanctuary. Thousands of people had gathered here, drawn by the protective quantum field generated by the transformed animals and humans working in concert. Similar safe zones had appeared worldwide, often centered around marine populations where transformed whales and dolphins maintained vast protective bubbles against the increasing radiation. Professor Kapoor's latest research had confirmed their hopes. "The transformation is accelerating exponentially," he reported through the network, his consciousness reaching them from his post in Mumbai. "As more humans change, the process becomes easier for others. We're approaching a global tipping point." But opposition remained fierce. In some regions, military forces still attempted to contain or control the transformation, viewing it as a threat to human dominance. Their weapons, designed to disrupt quantum fields, caused pockets of chaos where the protective network couldn't reach. Dr. Tanaka's voice resonated through the network from her laboratory deep within the Institute. "The magnetic field's collapse has reached critical levels. Traditional electronic communications are failing worldwide. We estimate less than 48 hours before Earth's surface becomes uninhabitable to unchanged life forms." The choice that had seemed theoretical months ago now became desperately real. Humanity could no longer survive as it was. The transformed animals had known this all along. Their evolutionary leap wasn't just about survival, but about lifting Earth's biosphere to a new level of existence. Through the quantum network, Isabella received images from around the world. In the Amazon, vast networks of transformed plants and insects created living shields against the increasing radiation. In the oceans, whales and dolphins maintained enormous quantum fields that protected marine life and coastal human populations. In cities, transformed humans worked with local wildlife to extend protective bubbles over as many people as possible. The children continued to lead the way. Their natural ability to access the quantum realm made them powerful catalysts for change. In safe zones worldwide, they helped adults overcome their fear of transformation, their innocent acceptance of the new reality, inspiring others to embrace the change. Linda Martinez, now fully transformed, coordinated global documentation efforts. "We're not just changing physically," she shared through the network. "Our consciousness is expanding. Every transformed being adds their unique perspective to the whole. We're becoming something entirely new while still remaining ourselves." The final push came as Earth's magnetic field entered its death throes. Massive solar storms battered the planet, and only the quantum shields maintained by transformed life forms held back the lethal radiation. In this moment of crisis, the last bastions of resistance crumbled. The choice became stark: transform or die. What followed was unlike anything in Earth's history. A conscious, coordinated evolution of an entire planet's biosphere. Through the quantum network, every transformed being contributed to maintaining a global shield while helping others through their own transformation. The process cascaded through populations, each changed individual making it easier for others to follow. Isabella watched through transformed eyes as humanity transcended its old limitations. The quantum network that had once seemed alien became as natural as breathing. Individual consciousness remained distinct but connected, each mind adding its unique voice to a symphony of awareness that spanned the globe. The ravens, their crystalline forms now pulsing with pure quantum energy, shared their final message. "The separation is ended. The healing begins. We are whole." As Earth's magnetic field stabilized in its new configuration, The transformed biosphere pulsed with unprecedented vitality. Humans, animals, and plants were no longer separate kingdoms, but part of a vast, conscious network. Individual species maintained their unique forms and identities, but the barriers between them had dissolved. Communication was instant, consciousness was shared, and the collective knowledge of Earth's life became accessible to all. Professor Kapoor's final research revealed something extraordinary. The transformation hadn't just saved life on Earth, it had fulfilled an ancient potential. The quantum network that now connected all living things wasn't new. It was a return to Earth's original state, a reactivation of capabilities that had lain dormant for millions of years. Standing in the dawn of this new era, Isabella felt the pulse of Earth's transformed life flowing through her consciousness. Through the network, she sensed Nathan's presence, along with billions of other minds, human and animal alike, all connected in a vast web of shared awareness. The question of whether humans could talk to animals had become obsolete. In becoming something new, they had remembered something ancient. They had always been one. Above them, the new aurora painted the sky in quantum colors that their old eyes could never have perceived, a reminder that evolution wasn't just about survival. It was about becoming more than they had ever imagined possible. The transformation of Earth was complete, but the true journey was just beginning.